What's up? So today we are going to talk about what are property managers and what do they do. I'm just going to start out by saying property management is by no means a sexy job or an easy job. Almost all of us have rented out an apartment or some type of property at some point. And you'd be lying if you said that you had ever called your property manager and just told them, hey, you're doing a great job, or any time other than when there was a problem. Because no one ever calls up their property manager and says, hey, hope you're having a great day, you're doing a great job, and you are amazing. So with that said, property managers are often and for the most part are dealing with unhappy tenants and dealing with problems. So it's not a very appealing job to the average Joe unless you're just absolutely outstanding at listening to complaints and absolutely just enjoy absorbing negative comments and complaints on a regular basis. So with that, if you're an investor looking to hire a property manager, do your research, ask other people with property managers or other investors who they would recommend, who they would refer. Just simply do your due diligence. Find someone you can trust, someone that's honest, someone you can work with on a regular basis, and someone you can just overall mesh really well with. So now that we've got that down, what do property managers do and why does this sound like a job that nobody wants? So first, property managers will help you actually find tenants. Do all the screening of tenants, which means they'll do background checks, do an assessment on how reliable this tenant would be to pay on time, and that sort of thing. So on top of finding these tenants and after screening them, they will also coordinate and conduct the whole process of taking these tenants after they're screened and putting them into your unit. So with that, now that you have these tenants that have been screened and they're in your property, number two, they will collect your rent, which to most real estate investors is the number one thing that they worry about because you can't pay that mortgage without the rental income. This kind of goes into another segment of whether or not this would be something that you should hire out and get a property manager, or if you feel comfortable that you can do this on your own. This is a self-evaluation thing here, but if you tend to be a pushover or tend to give people the benefit of the doubt, property management probably is not for you. And for clarity, that is okay. As soon as you give any sort of lenience to a tenant, whether that's with rent, paying on time, or damages, whatever, they've got you by the you-know-what. Keep that in mind when you are assessing if this is something for you, something you can do on your own, or if you should hire a property manager to take care of that stuff for you. This also kind of carries into duty number three that a property manager does for you, and that is fining. The same framework of doing your self-evaluation here as well. Are you able to give the bad news or give news to a tenant that they are being fined? Or is that a job for a property manager? For property managers, take care of evictions. Most common issues that real estate investors run into is putting the wrong tenants into their properties. You hear all of the nightmare stories of drug busts in houses and party houses with tons of damages done to them, like Project X kind of stuff, all sorts of illegal activities and all that going on. So it's important whether you're managing the place or property manager is managing the place that there is a set of standards so you can reduce that risk when you are screening those tenants and putting them into your units. Just simply eliminate or reduce that risk of having an eviction. Lastly, number five, property managers will take care of fixes and repairs on that property. Some property management companies have in-house handymen or contractors that will do these things for you. These property management companies that have the in-house contractors and handymen that are working full-time are typically the larger property management companies that are managing like hundreds of properties. And then some of them, probably the most common that we see, just hire people out. They find local contractors, plumbers, electricians, handymen, and oftentimes they work with these guys pretty closely and often. Regardless, property managers take care of these things that you don't want to do, and they are the ones taking the phone call at 2 a.m. that the toilet is leaking. So I'm sure you're wondering, what is the cost to hire a property manager and what are they charging for their services? Well, the national average fee for a property manager is typically somewhere around 10% of your gross monthly income, but it is not uncommon to see some property managers charging somewhere around 20%. So if your gross rent is $1,000 per month and your property manager is charging you 10%, you're going to pay $100 per month for this property manager's services, or $1,200 per year. This usually includes everything that we talked about today. So when you're evaluating whether or not to hire a property manager or do it yourself, really dig into those numbers on the property and make sure that it works for you. With everything that I mentioned today, are you willing to put up with that yourself? Is your time worth more or less than what the property manager would charge? Will the property still cash flow every single month if you hire a property manager? Ultimately, are their services worth it? So there's kind of the quick synopsis on what property managers do. If you're wondering, I do not have a property manager yet. When I get to 4, 5, or 6 properties is probably when I'll start to consider getting a property manager, because right now, only having one investment property, I can kind of manage this myself. It doesn't take up a whole lot of my time every month. At the same time, I'm actually enjoying the experience that I'm getting from it. But when it starts to become a little bit too much for me, that's probably when I'm going to start looking for a property manager. Well, that about does it. If you have any questions on this, give me a shout. Otherwise, I will see you guys next week.